In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the mind can be either the source of bondage or the source of freedom. In Dhammapada, Gautama Buddha says that the mind can be either the source of joy or the cause of suffering. Psychologists suggest that a large proportion of our mind is unconscious. Therefore, mind is a tool, and if you use it correctly, you can recreate your life consciously. However, if not used appropriately, it is your greatest enemy. Wrongly used, you will go on falling into more and more misery. And the mind has become the master. You are just a slave, a shadow following the mind. You cannot order your own mind. Your mind goes on ordering you and you have to follow it. You are lying down on your bed, changing your sides. You want to go to sleep, and the mind continues. It has become dictatorial, and it will struggle hard if you try to put it in its right place. George Gurdjieff once said that the human being is like a grand house where the true master has gone missing. In his absence, the house is ruled by disorganized servants, our conflicting egos, moods, and mechanical reactions. The cook tries to be the gardener. The janitor believes he is the king. Every voice wants to dominate. This metaphor isn't about buildings, it's about the human mind. Today, people live unconsciously. They are ruled not by conscious awareness, but by reactions, memories, beliefs, and impressions that are no longer relevant. We call ourselves free, but our lives are determined by unconscious conditioning. One of the most profound insights of Patanjali, and now affirmed by modern science, is that mind and body are not two separate entities. Western science now speaks in terms of the psychosomatic, the unity of psyche, mind, and soma, body. Patanjali understood this thousands of years ago. Sage Patanjali does not say that mind leads to bliss. Rather, he proclaims that bliss is your true nature. What the mind can offer is the clearing of misery, the removal of obstacles. It can open a window, but it does not create the sun. The rays were always there. When the mind is in misery, it closes, like a house shutting out all light. We become withdrawn, isolated, self-destructive. Misery is contraction. Joy is expansion. Patanjali, one of the most sublime explorers of the human interior, suggests that the real disease is not outside us, but within the field of our own mind. What we suffer from is not the lack of resources or opportunity, but the whirlpools of our own thoughts. The noise in the world is only a reflection of the noise inside. The mind, or chitta, is not who we are. It is the screen upon which the movie of life is projected. But over time, we have forgotten that we are the seer and not the scenes. Thoughts have become our identity. Vrittis, or mental modifications, have shaped our personalities, habits, and reactions. The more we live in reaction, the more we become bound by samskaras, the subtle impressions left by every experience. These samskaras become tendencies, and tendencies become character. We are not acting. We are being acted upon by our past. He says, yoga is the cessation of the modifications of the mind stuff. But what are these modifications? Why do they matter? Because as long as we are identified with them, we remain asleep. To understand the 5 vrittis, the 5 patterns of the mind, is to shine a light into the very mechanism that drives our suffering. And once we see it clearly, we begin to wake up. Let us now understand these 5 modifications of the mind, vrittis. For in recognizing their play, we gain the power to master them. 1. Pramana. Pramana is translated as right knowledge, and its source is a direct perception, pratyaksha, inference, anumana, and the testimony of the wise, agama. But even what we call right knowledge can be a deception when filtered through impure senses, memory, or belief. Therefore, the correct translation should be wisdom. Osho explains that pratyaksha, often translated as direct cognition, is misunderstood. It literally means before the eyes, but the eyes themselves are not trustworthy. They are just instruments. If they are clouded by desire, hate, memory, or suggestion, they can distort the truth. True pratyaksha, Osho says, is immediate knowledge without any intermediary, not even the senses. It is inner seeing, a pure witnessing that arises in meditation. When mystic Ramakrishna and psychoanalyst Carl Jung were asked, "Is there God?" they said, yes, but not because they believed it, but because they knew it. What they are referring to by no, here is the pramana, the wisdom derived from direct perception. When right knowledge operates, one moves choicelessly in the direction of truth, just like a sunflower moves with the sun, without deciding or judging. A sage is someone who acts spontaneously from inner clarity, not from moral struggle. Patanjali suggests that even logic or true knowledge becomes poisonous when claimed by the false ego. Only wisdom, the direct recognition of truth, is free from mental delusion. 2. Vipariyaya, the veil of misunderstanding. Vipariyaya is false knowledge, a perception that doesn't match reality. Osho calls it the lens of illusion, the seeing that comes from the mind and not from the heart. Vipariyaya is the mind's tendency to misinterpret reality. When your inner center is distorted, even your best intentions go astray. Whatever you read, think, or decide, it turns into something false. Not because of the information itself, but because the lens through which you interpret it is flawed. J. Krishnamurti said, "The observer is the observed." This means when we look through fear, trauma, or desire, we don't see the world, we see our wound projected onto it. An example, a person once betrayed in love sees betrayal in every relationship. Or someone raised with the belief that money is evil will unconsciously sabotage prosperity. In India, the Ganges is revered as sacred. The ancient insight was that bathing in the Ganges was symbolic, meant to wash away one's inner impurities, to inspire repentance and renewal. But over time, people began using the ritual to justify repeating sins. They thought, I can sin all week and just wash it off on Sunday. The act lost its inner meaning and became a religious transaction, a cleansing of outer sin while leaving the inner self untouched. This is how religious tradition, if not understood, turns into a cycle of escapism rather than transformation. The distortion is not in the world, but in the lens of perception. Modern life is full of vipariyaya. The way we stereotype, the way we consume biased news, the way we assume motives, it all arises from an internal distortion. Vipariyaya is dangerous because it gives us the illusion of knowing. And to awaken from it requires great humility, the willingness to say, maybe I don't know. 3. Vikalpa. A vikalpa or imagination are constructs built from language or images without any real content. It is imagination that has no grounding in direct experience. Words, images and symbols are powerful, and they can hypnotize, condition, and even destroy you. Wars are fought over words like God, nation, or honor. Children are broken by words like failure or ugly. Osho calls vikalpa the most cunning modification of the mind because it appears intelligent. Someone may speak beautifully about love without ever having loved. Others build entire philosophies without having experienced truth. On one hand, imagination is the source of all beauty in human life, poetry, music, art, invention, scientific vision, and spiritual metaphor. But on the other hand, imagination, when untethered from awareness, can become a dangerous illusion. Hitler is a stark example. His fantasy of becoming Superman, Nietzschean moral hero, gave rise to genocide and world war. Even children's intelligence is shaped by imaginative labeling. When told they are dull, they become dull. When affirmed as gifted, they rise to meet it. But imagination can also delude spiritual seekers. In meditation, visions of divine figures, Krishna, Jesus, Buddha, may arise. One may feel transported, ecstatic. But Patanjali warns, enjoy the vision, but don't mistake it for truth. The only reality is the witnessing self. When imagination becomes a tool, it uplifts. When it becomes a master, it enslaves. Whether it leads to art, madness, healing, or delusion depends not on imagination itself, but on the clarity and awareness with which we hold it. But most of us speak without awareness, and our inner narrative becomes a hallucination. A celebrity becomes trapped in their image and forgets who they really are. Or someone on social media creates a perfect life while internally falling apart. The words become masks. Yoga demands silence, not the absence of sound, but freedom from inner chatter. In that silence, vikalpa drops, and truth can be felt directly. 4. Nidra, the hypnosis of sleep. Nidra is not merely physical sleep. It is the mind state of unconsciousness, where awareness has been completely withdrawn. It is the state of modern man, living mechanically without inner wakefulness. Osho says that man is a sleepwalker. He goes through motions, but there is no one home. We are born asleep, we live asleep, and unless we become conscious, we die asleep. Rumi implores, don't go back to sleep. The door is round and open. In today's world, Nidra is reinforced by media, consumerism, and digital addiction. We live in repetition loops, checking phones, performing roles, chasing goals, but rarely asking, who is living this life? Yoga is the art of bringing light into this darkness. Even in deep sleep, there is potential. Ancient yogis developed practices like Yoga Nidra to carry awareness into the sleep state, using it as a gateway to samadhi. When you can watch the watcher fall asleep, a great revolution happens. You are no longer the body, not even the mind, you are awareness itself. 5. Memory. It is the repository of experiences, impressions, traumas, and achievements. Without it, we cannot function. But when we identify with it, we stop living. Gurdjieff called most people living corpses because they act from dead memories. One humiliation in childhood becomes a lifelong fear of rejection. One failure defines a person's sense of worth. Rupert Spira notes that even memory is reconstructed in the now. What we remember is not the past, it is our present interpretation. Memory is not reality. It is a story we keep telling ourselves. Think of a musician who was booed on stage once. Every time they step on stage, the memory hijacks them. But memory can also be rewired. Osho says memory is like manure. If you let it rot inside, it poisons. If you use it, it fertilizes. Memory often interferes with our present activities and leads us into delusion. The key is to observe oneself while being carried out by memory. Once you see this, the prison starts disappearing. Conclusion: from bondage to witnessing. The 5 modifications of the mind are not enemies. But they are not masters either. When we live unconsciously, they rule us. When we become aware, we rule them. Yoga is not a war with the mind. It is a dance with it, until the dancer outgrows the dance. Patanjali doesn't tell us to destroy the mind. He tells us to transcend it. When the modifications are stilled, the seer abides in their own true nature. That nature is not a belief. It is not a story. It is the silent, luminous presence behind all states. It is the witness who was never born and never dies. Awareness is not part of the mind, it is the witness that flows through the mind but remains distinct from it. Just as electricity flows through a bulb without being part of the bulb, awareness functions through the mind as a medium but is not produced by it. The mind is merely a vehicle, like a car or an airplane, which awareness uses to operate in the world. Even Buddha must use the mind to communicate, but his awareness exists independently of it. Most people misuse the mind, limiting it to imagination and distraction, rather than tapping into its higher function, right knowledge. Meditation aims to reveal pure awareness, which is only possible when the mind becomes silent. At that point, one sees that the body and mind are instruments, and the true self, the master, is the unchanging awareness behind them. Mistaking the vehicle for the self is the root of ignorance, a state known as identification or tadatmya in yoga. Man is not just his conscious mind, beneath it lies a vast unconscious and a largely involuntary body, which stores deep-seated patterns and habits. Intellectual understanding alone is insufficient for transformation because unconscious patterns and bodily imprints continue to influence behavior. Hence, Patanjali emphasizes persistent inner practice and vairagya, non-attachment. Persistent inner practice gradually reprograms the unconscious through repetition, allowing new patterns to take root, just as a name becomes embedded through constant use from childhood. True transformation occurs only when understanding reaches the body and unconscious mind, not just the intellect. Yoga aims for a total change in being, and for that, practice must reach deep into these hidden layers. Even destructive patterns like anger or sadness persist due to deep-rooted habits and unconscious investments. For instance, people may cling to sadness to gain sympathy, or eat excessively due to a lack of love, unconsciously associating food with emotional fulfillment. To undo these patterns, non-attachment creates the space for detachment from desires and obsessions, and practice reconditions the system. Practical techniques, like pausing before reacting in anger, can redirect unconscious impulses. Over time, these efforts lead to natural goodness and spontaneity, where right action becomes effortless, like breathing. The message is clear. Yoga is not about suppression but about retraining the whole being, conscious and unconscious, so that goodness, peace, and clarity arise from within, not through willpower or moral struggle, but through inner transformation.